Hey YouTubers, this is Ishtiyaq with you once again. I am a Philadelphia-based event and landscape photographer, and welcome to another episode of my photography blog. In this episode, we are going to look at fireworks. This is July. We're towards the end of July now, but as we know, towards the beginning of the month, on the 4th of July, we had fireworks all across America, and it was possibly one of the most photographed events. Now, when it comes to taking pictures of fireworks, there are lots and lots of factors. It's a very difficult thing to do because it happens only once a year or maybe twice a year. It takes place for a very short amount of time, and it takes place in the middle of the night where you are crowded with people around you and you're under pressure to take the photo you want. Of course, if you're there just to enjoy, lucky you are. But if you want to take pictures, a firework is one of the most challenging subjects, but not necessarily the most difficult one, because it takes a lot of trial and error, and in this day and age we are lucky that we get to know about what other people have tried. So I'm going to share with you some tips about taking pictures of a firework, and then in the processing table we're going to look at how we can take the pictures and process them, because there's a lot that goes on after taking the photo as well. Now, as far as taking the photo, what I'm mentioning here is settings that I have tried, and of course there are others who have tried different settings, and all of these are just good starting points for you. Anytime you're taking pictures of a firework, you have the challenge of going through it and on the fly making adjustments that work for you and that fit that particular event that you're covering. Now, when it comes to fireworks, the first advice that I give anyone is that you must always have a plan B. And this automatically means that you should be doing your homework, you should be doing your scouting, and you should know that there are, or there can be, at least two approaches, at least two scenarios, and you should have two different plans accordingly. Let me give you some examples. You may go into the firework. For example, I am in Philadelphia, and there are events that take place. There's the New Year's fireworks, they have two of those. There's the 4th of July firework, and they all happen around famous known buildings. They happen near the Ben Franklin Bridge, they happen near the Art Museum. Well, I know that it's a wonderful location. We know that there's always an event and music in a gathering place. There are places where people gather to view the fireworks, but there are some other factors. For example, you know which building or which location the firework is going to take place. Nice and good. But do you know how far up in the air the bursts and the explosions will take place? You need to know that because you need that information to be able to create the frame that you want. And unless you have the right frame, you will be left hunting in the dark, literally in the dark, because you don't have, if you change your frame, you do not know where to focus, you do not know what to do. So you need to know ahead of time whether the equipment you have or the location that you get is good enough or far enough or near enough to capture a full frame. Can you have the foreground element, the area of interest, and the sky where all the fireworks are going to take place? You need to know that. You need to know whether you're going to try to shoot that, or the other option is, do you want to zoom in and take pictures of the individual explosions of those little fireworks? That's the decision to make. So based on that, you need to know whether you're going to go for a long lens or a wide lens. So that's an example of what you're going to need to know. And you need to know this because if your plan is wrong, you will know that within the first few seconds. And at that point in time, you need to not panic and very calmly switch over to the other plan, try that out, and of course make little adjustments. Now, when it comes to adjustments, there are so many factors, and of course there are, even if it weren't too many, it can get very confusing. When you are under the pressure, a lot of times you confuse which dial to change. You confuse which parameter to play with. So let's go through some of those situations. When you're taking photos of a firework, you can keep your ISO at 100. You do not need to go to any faster ISO, 200, 400, 600, 800, 1600. You do not need to go that far, because even, I mean, of course, when you're framing, it will look dark and you will have the temptation to boost the ISO. But even then, the point is you are not shooting for the building, you're shooting for the firework. And they are bright. They are so bright that you can have your ISO set at 100 and you can have your aperture value at 9, 11, 13 or even higher if you want. Even after that, you will get a very well exposed photo. So you need to know that and you need to prepare according to that. At any point in time, if you're in trouble, you can always play around with the aperture if you want, but I would recommend that you fix it at a certain point. 9 or higher. You will notice that 13, 16 work better for some of my cases. Once you find that sweet spot, stay there. Same with the ISO, 100, you can stay there. What do you play with then? You play with your shutter speed. And this is very critical to know, because this also brings us to another fork where we have to decide between two alternatives. Depending on where you are, when the bursts are there in the sky, when you see the patterns, you may be in a position where you have a full frontal projection, meaning you can have a burst here and a burst here, and they will not overlap too much. And because they wouldn't overlap, you wouldn't have too many areas that are burned. Because if it's a red burst and a green burst, you want to see that red and green. You don't want to see your picture exposed in certain places so that you have only white blown highlights. So you don't want that. You need to know where you are, and based on that, and you will see in the photos that I show you, this year I was not looking at it straight. I was looking at it from an angle, and as a result there was a lot of times when there were overlaps and I had a lot of burnt pixels there, and I did not get the beautiful patterns that I wanted. It was different. It was still beautiful, but it was different. It was not the best view you would get from just staring at it from the right in front. So you need to know that, and based on that you need to make decisions. So the reason I say this is, when you are taking pictures, you need to be aware some things in terms of almost checklist like things that you can do. If you are at the location early, probably there will still be some light. It will be sunset or thereafter. Take some pictures before anything happens. Take some pictures while you are either in the golden hour or the blue hour. Take some pictures, because if you take that background and eventually superimpose photos, and if you do a composite, it will turn out brilliantly. So take that picture. Take a picture of the deep dark sky before any firework, and then take a picture after everything's over, because when you take the last picture you'll see a lot of smoke from those explosions. So take those pictures. And I forgot to mention, but I guess you have guessed already, another decision that you have to make is whether you are going to go for a composite or not. In my photo you will see that I have taken a lot of these pictures, and I've sat down and have just mixed and merged and placed them accordingly. Because when you look at a firework show, you'll be there staring at the sky for 15 minutes, and in that time there will be hundreds of bursts, and they will look beautiful. There will be all these patterns that will be right in front of your eye, but you can't take pictures of all of that. In that case, you would end up with a collection of 100 photos, and people would get bored eventually. So you need to capture that essence and just bring it together to encapsulate that in a few photos. So in your mind, you need to know ahead of time whether you're going to make composites or are you going to make just standalone pictures. It's a matter of taste, but you need to be very deliberate in the choice you make. And now the final thing is, when you are looking to take photos of fireworks, do yourself a favor, beg, borrow or steal, but get a remote release, get a bulb release, because you will be setting your shutter in bulk mode. You'll have the cable release, it doesn't cost much. It costs between $7 to $30 depending on how fancy you want it to be. What it does is the shutter is on when you have your finger pressed on it. So have that, use that. The way to use it in terms of timing, in my experience, what works best is between 2.5 seconds to 4.5 seconds. The rest of the settings, as I said, your ISO can be is set to 100. Your aperture value can be 11 or 13. But when you are controlling it, when you're opening your lens, keep that open for about 2.5 seconds. And the reason I mention is that in my observations, that's the amount of time when you see from an explosion to the entire ray coming down towards the end. If you go beyond that, if you go to about 4.5 seconds or so, it kind of peters out a little bit and it doesn't look as good. You can go for a long exposure, say 7 seconds. It might work well for you, but that's where you need to be in a good location. That's where you need to make sure that the different bursts that are taking place are not all in the same area, because that way you will get a lot of burnt pixels. So know the projection from the location where you are and make these decisions. Another technique that a lot of people use is keeping your keeping your lens open for a long time. Say you don't have access to a cable release, you still want to photograph fireworks. You can't just keep on, you can't set it to 2.5 seconds and just press it, because you'll shake your camera. So if you want, you can have it on timer, and every time you can have it open for, say, 30 seconds, the max you can go. If you go that route, what you need to do is have a piece of black cloth or a black board or something, so that in between the bursts you can cover the lens. So all you need to do is the head of the lens, just cover that, and whenever you're there, after a few seconds, you will sort of be able to predict the rhythm. And when you do that, what you need to do is the 2.5 seconds that I mentioned, or revealing the lens and covering it again, do that when you hear the sound of something being projected in the air. So you'll hear that whee noise and you know that a burst is going to come. That is when you press, that is when you open, so that you capture everything from that explosion to the trail until it ends. So that takes about 2.5 to 3 seconds. You can keep some cushion before and after, that will work well. And also, when you are in that location to take photos, approach that as your typical nightscape. Forget the fireworks, look around you, and think how you can take a good photo in the night at that time. Some tips: say if you're near a road, there's the opportunity to take photos of a light trail. There are cars going and you have headlights and taillights. Just capture a few light trails. If it is, even if it's in the night, you'll find buildings that are usually lit in a fantastic way. Take pictures of that. And also, when you're taking pictures of fireworks, many a times the best subject and the best photo is not in the sky, but right in front of you. There may be a little child who is there for the first time, and he or she will be looking at the sky in joy and in curiosity and in awe that you and I are completely incapable of. So try to capture that moment. Just look around and find those moments. Find a dad who is showing his kid a firework for the first time. Find a place where there's a reflection. Find a kid who is covering his ears because he's afraid. So there are so many opportunities. So you need to just keep your eyes open, enjoy the fireworks as you would enjoy it even if you were without the camera. And if you can do that, then you're going to come home and you're going to have photos in your camera which truly will allow you to relive the memory. So I hope this has been helpful. We are going to process some of the photos. These were mostly busts because I couldn't get a good location this time. And I went there with my little baby, so we had to be in a parking garage. I couldn't go as close to it as I would have liked to. Maybe in a couple of years I'll go there with him and he'll have this camera or another one to take photos. But I will still show you those pictures and we'll see what we can do, the most we can make out of whatever photo we had, and you'll get to see the basics as well. The basics are always the same. What enhancements we make with it is where we actually get to make our creative expressions. So I hope you like this episode. Let's head on to the editing table. Thank you. Alright, so here we are in Lightroom and we have 3 pictures here for you. The first one is a base image that I took at the very beginning before there's any firework. We were still some ways away and it was dark as can be in a city so big as Philadelphia. But we were there, and then once the fireworks started, I took a few photos, and I'm just keeping only a couple of those here. And the first thing you'll notice is that the framing is different, and something else you'll notice is that the aperture value, I started at 13 when I took this base picture, but I eventually went up to 16, and that's what I found was useful for the fireworks that I was trying to photograph. And that also gives an indication that you really don't need to worry about pushing the ISO or any other thing. It's really very bright. And this I created from a panorama actually, and I'll show you how to do that in a separate episode. So that's why you see the framing to be different, because from where I was, this is the frame that I got with the 50mm, and that's the one that I had with me at that time. So I took a few photos and created this base that I use for all pictures, and I suggest that you do something similar. It'll really make your life easy. So what we do is we select all of these, we right click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. So you do that, and it'll take a few seconds to load up. So what we are going to be doing, let me explain that in the meantime. So what we're going to try and do is I'll just show you as an instructional instructional task to how you can take those fireworks and apply layers on them. That's what we're going to be using here. So we're going to apply layers and selectively make just the bursts visible and go from there. The idea is you have a clean image with a dark black sky, and on that sky you want your fireworks. So we're going to see what we can do, and there are some mismatches, which actually is good, because in this case you will know how to deal with it if you're faced with those situations. So there's the second photo, and it'll take just a few more seconds. So our task will be to look into what we can do with this light, for one, because this bright light was just aimed directly at us. Again, I wish I weren't in that location, but I was, and I need to make the most of it. So something to do with that, and also we need to worry about how to deal with the misalignment that we have, because the base picture, the composite picture, is of a completely different framing than the bursts, so we need to worry about that. Alright, so the first thing I'll do is I'll bring this one down, and let me zoom out just a little bit so that it's easier. And I want to make sure that we are not working with a picture bigger than the frame that we have, but I'll crop it out later on, this transparent area that you see. So the first thing is we'll take these two, and they should be aligned perfectly, but in case they are not, go to edit, then auto align layers, and just keeping it at auto, select OK. What it does is that it takes those layers and makes sure that every element is in place, and based on the content. So we have that, and as we notice that these are kind of placed upward, which I personally am okay with, because that's the best I could do. We'll just live with it. Now in this case, what we're going to be doing is, let's make one of those invisible and have the first one to work with. We are going to create a layer mask, and I'm going to press down Alt or Option and click on it, so create a black mask. If you simply clicked on it, I'll do it for the other one. If you simply just click on it, you'll get a white mask, but in that case what you do is you press Command or Control I, and that turns black, and black means that is invisible. So in this picture, and of course remember to click on the layer as you do it, and make sure that you have a white brush. We take a brush, we make sure the foreground color is white, and we are on the layer, and we don't want the opacity to be so much, so let's just reduce it to say 60%. And what we do then is we paint, and approximately just an eyeball estimate that we should have something around here, and that's actually it. So let's take that, and as we paint here, we reveal this little burst of firework. So that's one. Alright, so we got that one, and if we click on and what I did was pressing down Alt or Option, I clicked on the mask to see what I did cover here, and just click back. So that's the first one. We'll tidy it up later on. If you want to do it right now, you can of course zoom in, and pressing B to get the brush, and pressing X to flip the colors. And as you my bad, I'm on the photo, I should be on the mask. So on the mask, as I am in, there you go, in with black, you paint on it, and that takes away the part that you painted on. So you can do that. You can fine tune it as you want. Let's just move on to the other one and show how to do it, and we'll come back to this, because this is down to how tediously and how meticulously you want to work. So let's take the first the other one. Again, click on the mask, pressing X, or you can click on this here to make sure that white is selected, and approximately this is the area where we have the bursts, and lo and behold, that's actually where it is. So let's get that. We have revealed, and I'm painting over because my opacity is low, so I just want to make it a little bright as I go over it again and again. Alright, so again with this one we ended up taking a bit more than we wanted, so let's press X, and yes, I am on the mask, so let's do that. So you know how you can reveal. So what you do is you make the other one visible, and you have something. Now the problem is we have these fireworks overlapping each other, and that doesn't look nice. So what we do in this case is we change the blending mode, and from normal you can use lighten or screen, and again go to the other one and select screen, and that's basically the trick. If you do this, the blending mode changes so that the areas where it is lighter, or where you have light pixels, it is what gets shown, and the areas where it's not is not shown. So immediately you went from something like this, which is very choppy and crude, to this, which is definitely much more blended in. So you can do that, and then of course we can go in, we can take our brushes, and we can play around with the masks until we can soften it a little bit to the sides if we want. This is actually not looking pretty as I do this on the fly. Nope, I'm not going to keep any of those, and that misalignment is coming up again, but let's leave it here. The instructional part of this is that you can take this. Number one is you take a mask, you reveal the areas that you want, and then you change the blending mode, and then of course in the case of this photo we need to crop it just a little bit so that we don't have to worry about the transparent areas. But after this, there's actually something else you can do, and I wanted to quickly touch that. We are going to press Command or Control T, and that's going to bring us in the free transform mode, and that's for just this one layer that's visible. So what we can do now is we can move this around, and we can move it up, we can enlarge this if we want, and we can place it on the screen where we really want it to. So let's just press enter, and that's a lot of change that we did. Again, let's come to the other one. Control T, Command T again, and once again we can take this and we can change, we can play with it any way we want. So that's something that I wanted to demo very quickly, is that if you are doing a fireworks composite and if you want to place them in according to you like them best, that's how you can do it. And of course you can not just placing. For placing, you can take this move tool and you can move it around, which is perfectly fine as well. But if you want to change the scale, if you want to warp it, for example, you can press Control T and then Command T, and then pressing down Command, I'm just moving one corner, and as you see, that changes the shape, that changes the angle of it, and you can play around with it in any way you like. So it's completely down to your own artistic freedom, and how you want to use it, how you want to express yourself. So that's the idea. Let me just go back a few steps until alright, let me not do that. Let's just stop where we did the crop. The free transform we're not going to be applying right now. So you have this done, and once you do this, what you will be doing is you can close, and immediately this picture will be sent back to Lightroom. Of course it looks horrible here in this area, so maybe there's something we can do here. Let's see if I can take the black brush and go over it. Nope, that doesn't help, but I can work with the other one, and I can, nope, that brings the light in. I can just play with it just a little bit to close it, and to make sure that there aren't any smokes, so that it doesn't look out of place, basically. I'm not playing around with it because I don't have as much time to as I do when I'm just working on it myself. But those are the tricks. That's the tip that you use. Oops, I somehow have this little area that's not meant to be. No, I should be using a black. There you go. Alright, so that's the brush. So somehow this got here. So play around with it, make sure that you don't have these little spots that shouldn't be here. That happened when I was just moving around with the transform. Okay, I don't want, so let me just get a completely dark brush and paint over this so that I don't need to worry about the halos there. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was working very quickly and something I just saw that. So that's also something you need to be careful about. Of course, you need to look at your photo before you go back, and the way to go back is you can press Command W or Control W in Windows, and it's going to save, and it's going to go back with the file name that you see here. Or if you want, you can come to File and then Save As, and give it a place it in any location, give it any name as you want, and that'll be picked up, and that's going to be the name that you see. So let's just save that for now, and we hit Command W. Yep, it's going to be closed after it's saved, so it'll save. It's almost done. Of course, to save space, you could have flattened the layer. You could have come to Layer, then Flatten, and that would have been it. But in the case of composites, I like to keep the layers because you can always come back. You can open the file and you can play around with it. That gives you the option of coming back and working with it. So here's the file. The edit, word that you see at the end. And so that's how you have it. And now if you want, you can do all sorts of playing around with it, process it like you would like you would process any photo. So it's completely down to your own taste. Play with it, make it good, make it beautiful. You have the entire tool set of Lightroom with you, and with the added benefit of course having Photoshop, because we went there and we made composites. I wish this was a wonderful firework. I'm talking about 4th of July 2015. I jokingly tweeted that Philadelphia was about to put up the best 5th of July fireworks, because we were standing there for a long time, and I think they started at around 11:30 or something. We were getting close to midnight, and I was there with our parents and my little infant, so that wasn't fun. I hope they're going to be more punctual next time. But yeah, it was a wonderful firework. As you can tell from just the few that we have here, there were many more. I wish I was somewhere around here from where you can see the front of the art museum, and there was a concert going on, so there was wonderful lights, there were people. I wish this billboard weren't there, because this is one of the finest vantage points of Philadelphia, and these guys have placed a billboard here that really kills it. But yeah, I hope you found it useful. I wanted to show some quick and easy tips and tricks that you can use. Anyone can use. These are very, these are not difficult skills to use. And I hope to see more of your fireworks photos, and I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful time. If you have any feedback, do let me know. That's it. Like, share, let me know. Get back in touch. Send me your photos to work with. Send me ideas. Tell me what I can do. Tell me what I'm doing right or wrong or whatnot. Thank you so much.